What's up, dudes and dudes to the internet? My name's Seth, and we are back games about Trove Geode, and today we're going to be talking about some very beautiful things. Thank goodness the devs actually talked about stuff in the more recent live stream regarding U10, the new gear, the new gems. We got quite a bit of exciting information that's not inherently going to end up giving out that much new information that we haven't already speculated about, but at least it does confirm a lot of things and we can put our foot in the door. Now, another thing too I want to mention, which is really cool, my Cornerstone is back. Oh my goodness gracious. So you know what that means, folks? That's actually really exciting. Somebody ended up mentioning it in the comments of the last video where my Cornerstone ended up getting deleted. But with the way that Trove used to work anyways, the Cornerstone was tied to your entire account. So often, I know lots of you guys and gals have dealt with this because I've seen your comments of dismay in the comments as well as just Twitter and stuff replying to me. Where if your Cornerstone got deleted and you sent in a ticket, usually they would be like, we're going to have to roll back your entire account in order to fix your Cornerstone. Well, it seems that they finally ended up wising up to the fact that this is uncommon, but does end up eventually happening depending on how long you've been playing Trove. And they've made it so that the Cornerstone is something completely separate from your character entity. So they didn't have to roll anything back. I didn't even check their reply to me in my emails just because I've been busy. And lo and behold, it was like, oh, by the way, you just have your Cornerstone now. What is going on with the frame rate in this stupid game? Seriously, what's happening? I gotta get out of here, man. I don't know what's going on. I just wanted to show you guys that that is there. But we got some exciting stuff. So big shout out to Shirokiri for summarizing all of this in the dev stream. Also, unfortunately, I guess maybe that's why they ended up talking about all this stuff, because for the next 2 weeks, devs are on holiday. We're apparently not going to end up getting any live streams out of them, and if we even do, it's not going to end up being anything spectacular, which is a little bit disappointing that they kind of went back on their word, because they did promise us that halfway through August they were going to start streaming and showing some of the new content. But I'll settle for a lot of the questions that we ended up getting answered today because it's really, really good. So before we get started, would appreciate if you would hit that like button. Really helps me out. So with the addition of a spectator mode, can we have the same feature for shadow towers, which is something that I myself and everybody else has been wanting for a very long time. They did say that they didn't create it with shadow towers in mind, but it's something they could put on the list when they revisit shadow towers. So probably sometime next year, if not years down the pipeline, but hopefully it's something that they eventually add, because spectation does need to be in shadow towers, because otherwise it can be pretty annoying when you're fighting a boss and all you just see is respawn, respawn. Will the new Primordial dragon use the current diamond dragon egg? Thank you. Somebody's been listening. So anyways, they end up saying, yes, it will follow the same setup as the others. So we can confirm without a doubt that your diamond dragon egg is going to be valuable. Another thing too is you can actually open your empowered gem boxes, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So will the new gem color type be only obtained through U10? They say sort of. It will only be attainable in the geode surface zones, which start at U8. So essentially, what I think is going on here is we're going to have a new elemental world that essentially is going to be the geode surface, right? Let's just call it an earth element, right? And apparently that new gem type is exclusive to the geode area. So I guess that means that we can't end up saving any of our, like, I've been saving my shadow gem boxes. I guess there's no reason for that, because they say that you can only really obtain it from the geode area, but at least they do mention that it's going to be from U8 and up. So it is essentially going to be a new elemental gem type and elemental gem world, right? Now, I'm still curious what that means in regards to U10 itself. You know, like, is U10 going to be a unique portal that is completely separated from the rest of the game? Or are we quite simply just going to see a more powerful version of U9 that's going to end up having primal worlds, elemental worlds, and ultimately not have anything unique? Because it sounds like the geode area is just going to be a new elemental world, which essentially is just going to end up being a new biome with new enemy types and stuff like that. But we do get some further hints a little bit further in this video that are going to be quite exciting. So next one we have is, can you make Bomber Royale count towards battle mastery? They've said it's something that they're looking into. It has its own set of rewards, and they've seen a lot of feedback on this, so they'll look into it. Yeah, don't look into it, just do it. Will the new gear be forged or only obtained in U10? Now, it's interesting that somebody asked this because we get to remind all of you guys watching at home that didn't check out my video a couple months ago where they did in fact confirm that we will only be able to forge the new gear type. So they just say again that the new gear is something you create. It's not dropped from creatures. So essentially you're going to have stellar gear in order to forge it up to the new type of gear. And I'm hoping that they're going to end up making it expensive in regards to stellar souls required, because then that could actually be a pretty good soul sink that would end up making the value of the extra stellar and radiant souls that we have just being that much more valuable, right? Because everybody would be forging like a crazy person. What will the power rank be required for U10? They say that as of right now, it's going to be 15,000 power rank, and it can end up changing. Now, people seem to be kind of on the fence about this. Some people that are at the early portion of the game are saying that that's too high, not realizing that when the new gem type comes out of the game and the new gear comes out, that getting 15 KPR is already going to be a cakewalk, more than it is currently, because you can get 15 KPR pretty easily if you know what you're doing. So personally, I think that it should actually be more difficult to get to U10, because we're talking about the end game here that hopefully is going to end up rewarding us for our efforts, and again, not just a more stronger version of U9. Which it potentially, I am expecting that it's just going to end up being nothing super spectacular, just because in the game's code, they already have U11 and 12, so it's only a matter of time before they add those worlds to the game as well, just because of the way that Trove's designed, where eventually they just run out of things to add to the game, and run out of ideas, and then they just, well, let's just make everybody stronger and put a new world out there with it, right? And with that, it means that U10 and anything further than that needs to be something that's a little bit more solid, rather than something that they end up designing from the ground up. That said, U10 could end up surprising me, but I'm a little bit skeptical about it. Will there be a new level cap increase with the release of U10? Level 40 to 50, anyone? New gem color, new item tier, and more mastery to earn, but no level cap increase. Ooh, that's gotta hurt. Seriously, we ended up talking about this a couple months back because the devs did end up hinting and saying that they were thinking about increasing the level cap, which could still end up happening. Never say never with these guys. All they end up doing is just kind of making things stronger and kind of stretching out the current content. So I wouldn't put it past them that the level cap is eventually going to end up increasing, and it's fine. I was salty about it at first, thinking like, what? No, but it's like, that's essentially what every game does. Every MMO just eventually ends up making us have the ability of getting stronger or higher level cap and stuff like that, right? Trove's just the only one where it doesn't do anything. But either way, it doesn't mean that it's not going to come out in the future. At least they do confirm that it is not going to be coming out this year anyways. What's the plan for after U10? So they say that there's lots of stuff. We have Shadow's Eve and Snowfest coming, which is kind of weird that they say that when the question was saying what's after U10. And we get a very, very disappointing response here that they end up leaking in, where they say lots of stuff is coming. We have Shadow's Eve and the Snowfest event coming, which that's nothing new. U10 is looking like a winter release instead of fall. Shadow's Eve will have new ways to earn the rewards this time due to feedback though. So U10 is getting delayed. We've been waiting all year for this. They even put out the Geode update that nobody liked. It was still cool when it came out, but nobody liked it. Like, seriously, everyone's just sitting here waiting for U10, and they're delaying it. For obvious reasons, that's going to be where they're going to make most of their money, is at the holiday season, right? Now, what I'm hoping is they've implied countless times in a lot of their live streams that they were going to add U10, and then there was going to be a bulk of other content that was linked with U10 that was going to come out as the last update of the year, right? So what I'm hoping is that they're just delaying the current U10 so that they can have the complete full package update come out all at once, including the Primordial Dragon, rather than having set pieces of content dragged out and released later down the line, meaning that when U10 comes out, it feels more like a test rather than something that's actually, full and complete, which we could still end up seeing U10 be completely broken even with the winter release. hopefully in the fall we're going to be able to test it, like test out the U10 and get some hype around it, because seriously, man, that is a long time to wait for a big update like this. But I guess it's going to be something cool, because they talk a little bit more about gear stats further on. Is there any chance Lexian could sell us rare companions? It's definitely a possibility in the future, but not anytime soon. I mean, honestly, they should just overhaul the egg system so that's a little bit better. Will there be new mastery items with Shadow's Eve? That's going to be the Halloween event coming around. Yes, there will be. Obviously, they're going to add some new stuff. They add new stuff every year, so I'm excited about that. Will we ever be able to play Bomber Royale in clubs? We've been wanting this since they ended up adding it, but they say that it makes sense. We want it to be something that players continue to play in public and not just retreating to their clubs, but we'll put it into the roadmap. I can't stand the idea that they think people are retreating to the clubs, not realizing that Club World PvP is more popular and has always been more popular than playing it with randoms in the hub. Not because of anything like, oh, you know, you want... what is this? Like, why? I'm all about playing in public matchmaking and stuff like that, but there is no matchmaking in this game. And even though they say that it's all tied to the hub and stuff like that, often you'll end up getting split into different games just because you ended up entering the portal a little bit later than the other person. And if they're trying to get us all to play together, why don't they make it so that the European and North American players can go into the same portal and come out the same end? Because instead, you know what happens? If you're on the European server, you can still play with North American players everywhere else, but if you go into PvP, it's spitting you in your own world. Yeah, that's right. So all you really gotta do is just relog into the game on the North American server, which is something a little bit more tricky to do on the console version rather than the PC. So anyways, enough about that noise. We need more Bomber Royale stuff in general. Who cares about playing it in clubs? Is there a new gear in U10, or is there a new gear in U10? It's going to be a... Let me rephrase. I'm saying this completely wrong. Is the new gear in U10 gear seen as a significant upgrade compared to Stellar Gear? Okay. Is it going to be better than Stellar Gear? We'll talk about this more in the future. There are going to be new stats with the new set of gear. Sort of like armor penetration. It will be a little different than a straight up upgrade from Stellar. This is kind of exciting because Trove, as we all know, doesn't have an armor stat. But they have talked about in the past how U10 is going to end up being a sort of combat overhaul update where they're going to end up changing how the combat works in the game. And we kind of just thought that it was just going to end up being an overhaul to the classes and the stats and everything like that. But seems that they're finally going to be giving us a bunch of different stats. Armor penetration is just one of them that they talked about, which means hopefully that they're going to end up adding an armor stat value to the game, even if it's only to the game's enemies, not necessarily the players, because honestly we don't need it. We just need damage. We've already got death defying, right? I guess if we had armor, though, we wouldn't necessarily need death defying for a lot of builds, which I think that armor penetration can potentially mean that Trove would actually have builds, because generally speaking, this game is extremely simple. Why do you think I can make tutorials on it? I can't play World of Warcraft. That game's complicated. Trove, you just cycle your stats over to DPS. That's it. But I've talked about this in the past. One of the things that, this is just speculation, that I'm hoping that they're going to do is make the combat a little bit more like Borderlands. Now, I'm not talking about it being a first-person shooter online game, but for those of you that haven't played Borderlands, it's actually got one of the best enemy type system, like enemy health system, I would say, in my experience of online gaming, that some other games have, but not too many, wherein the enemy types would actually end up having an armor stat, a shield stat, and a health stat. Now the raw health, of course, you drain that all the way down and you're going to be able to kill the enemy, but each of the other different stats ended up having different abilities or different elemental damage affecting it appropriately. So fire damage, for example, would go directly to the health, whereas acidic damage, acid, would end up affecting the armor, and then electric damage would affect the shield. I would love to see something like that added to Trove, where armor penetration would actually be something where you damage the enemy's health alongside the fact that you're draining its armor bar, because that's something that it's going to end up having as well. We don't know if that's going to be the case, but I'm really hoping that there's going to be some form of complexity added to the combat so that we can actually decide whether or not, and build our characters where one person's going to have armor penetration specifically to DPS through that armor, while somebody else can end up having a different stat value that is going to end up being appropriate more to a group style of play, because there's not really any reason to play a group in this game. You said it in a previous stream that all the augment items or augments existing on gems won't go to waste with the new gems. Is that still the case? It's got a lot of typos here, but they say that yes, there is a new color of gems coming with additional gem slots for them. So yeah, it means that we're going to be able to keep our current gems, and they're going to end up staying augmented and everything like that. But we're definitely going to have to augment and re-roll the new gem type as well, guys and gals, so keep that in mind. Will U10 be using any mechanics that were introduced during Geode's first phase? So more importantly, modules, because the devs have actually talked about in the past that U10 was going to end up having some form of modules. We've speculated whether it was going to be on the gems or the gear outright, but surprisingly, they actually seem to have gone back on that and say that no, U10 will be back to what you'd call core combat in Trove. Companions and modules will remain in the cave exploration aspect of Geode separately. So the Geode update essentially was just kind of pointless, which is a little bit disappointing, but at the same time, I don't want that in U10 anyways. When can we expect to hear details about the Tomb Raiser rework? That will be out next year. So the next class that they're going to be reworking is the Tomb Raiser, and that's coming out next year. Ouch. Oh my gosh. Like, I thought that the Tomb Raiser rework was going to be coming out sometime soon. Like, why does it take them so long to rework classes when that's something that they should have as their top priority? Especially when a new combat update is coming out to the game, and a lot of the classes are going to still be useless when U10 ends up coming out. Man, it's so frustrating, you know, because it's like, dude, just give us what we want. We want the classes reworked. Like, I want to be able to actually main the Shadowhunter in U10, not have to swap everything off of the Shadowhunter, which, I mean, that's just me. Will rings be included in the new gear tier? Haha. No, but we may be revisiting ring crafting in the near future. Why? You already revisited it in the future. Just add a new tier of rings, just because why not? And just have it take, like, I don't know, only stellar souls or something like that. Either way, potentially in the future, we'll have a new set of, ring tier quality to end up being that astral tier, which, by the way, I want to be clear, we're all just calling it astral gear. We don't know what they're actually calling it. I am assuming they might even call it interstellar gear or something. I don't know. Will we see more biomes in biomes? So they're talking about like the Luminopolis and how the devs ended up actually mentioning earlier in the year, when they made the Luminopolis biome and the Rampage bosses, they actually said that the next biome they were going to make a sub-biome for was the Ice biome, including ice-themed Rampage bosses, which we all thought was really exciting and really promising. It brought a lot of players back to the game because I would argue that the first update of the year was definitely the absolute highlight, most of all because we ended up getting a new class, but the Rampages in general were a nice feature, and having a sub-biome so that we didn't have to have a whole new biome added to the game was really cool, and something that I personally feel they should have kept developing over time over this year rather than just kind of abandoning it. So anyways, they go on to say that internally these are called sub-biomes. Most biomes have sub-biomes, but not as obvious as the Luminopolis, which we know exactly what they're talking about. They're talking about how the Jurassic biome can generate as a swamp or with the canopy of trees. I wouldn't necessarily call that a sub-biome. In the new Geode surface zones, there's going to be sub-biomes, but there are no plans to add any map tiles because of how busy it makes things. Meaning like the world generation and having more sub-biomes making the world generation that much more complicated, which I don't know. Essentially, they're saying that they're not going to, while saying that sub-biomes are just something that's a core part of the game that isn't necessarily being added. I don't know. Will the Geode Cave get more expansion or more depth, or is it classed as complete content now? That's an interesting question, because I would never consider it to be complete. There will be an expansion to the caves, absolutely, and there will also be at least one new companion coming out with U10. Now, Merc ended up telling me and kind of implying to me that that meant that we were going to have a new companion that we would get out of U10, but I'm pretty sure it just means that there's just going to be a new companion in general, which, honestly, who cares? Like, seriously, that means we're gonna have a new common, rare, and ultra rare version of a new type of companion, which I don't know. I mean, I guess it's cool if they expand upon the caves, because they do still feel kind of pointless right now outside of Mastery, but we know they're gonna expand upon it because of the Geode Mastery, which I'm assuming that everything out of U10 is gonna be Geode-related Mastery, which is quite disgusting. Like, seriously, I don't want any Geode rewards, man, seriously. Can we get more daily Geode quest limits? We will pass it along and talk about it. So, yeah, that's something that they definitely need to fix, is just the limit to quests in general. Will we see more Bomber Royale power-ups? There will be a new map and bomb skins, but no plans for power-ups as of yet. That's disappointing. I want an ice bomb. I want an acid bomb that operates the same as the lava bomb. I want a smoke bomb that makes you go invisible. I want all sorts of things, man. Like, seriously, just add it. But an ice bomb could be cool because you can make people slide around all over the place, and then you could hit them with a bomb and they just blast out into infinity. But yeah, they're gonna add bomb skins. I don't inherently think that they mean costumes. They're talking about the bombs that you throw are going to have different skins to them, which I don't know if that's a good thing, because then you're not going to be able to know which bombs are being thrown by other players, but who knows. When is the Shadows Eve event planned for? So that's going to be on the 23rd of October. So I guess that's why they're pushing U10 from that initial October release to later in the winter, because now they're having the Shadows Eve event come out instead, which it's fine. It's just a little disappointing that an update that hasn't even come out yet is already getting delayed. And it's just like, come on, guys, like just give us some information. I know it's coming out later, but come on. Will the resources in the caves be on Geode surface as well? So this is actually really interesting. It's something that I ended up thinking as well, where it's like, are we going to see, you know, similarly to how you see Shapestone in normal worlds, on the Geode surface, are we going to be able to mine and see the plants and the other resources that you normally see in the caves? They say that Geode surface will have a new set of resources. That's all we're going to say right now. So they confirm 100% here, folks. We already called it. They're acting like it's something exciting. New resources entirely. So the entire Geode cave system is going to be useless. If you're farming it out because you think it's going to affect U10, you don't have to, because it seems that now they're just going to end up giving us a whole bunch of new resources. That essentially means that we're not going to be able to forge any of the new content or get any of the new costumes or gear and everything like that, regardless of being an end game player, because you're going to have to mine it all from scratch again. So long as it's all tradable, I'm fine, but seriously, they got to get out of this habit, because it's not a good one to have. Like, I really don't like being at the end game and then them ultimately making it feel pointless whenever they just go on a whim and add a new bunch of resources to the game that suddenly just makes everything that we work towards being useless. Are you aware of the current Ice Sage and Revenant exploits? Yes, we're aware and we're working on it. So if you guys didn't know, the Revenant can be invincible and the Ice Sage can essentially end up jumping up in the air, have like a million enemies down on the ground, and your shots are going to have a little bit of AoE around them. And you know how you can trigger your explosive with your classroom ability? So if you have a whole pile of, say, pinatas at Daughter of the Moon, for example, this is what people have been using it for, you can just jump up in the air and shoot straight down, and your shot will actually proc off of all of the pinatas, causing the explosive effect to just chain and kill Daughter of the Moon in like 4 seconds. I don't use it because I don't care, but it's definitely something that's on their radar. So will Bomber Royale get duo or squad versions? They're looking into a duo version, which not on the current maps. Make them smaller. When is the next costume sale? Costume packs are coming for a limited time starting next week. I don't know why. Halloween would make sense. It's costume related, right? If you mean the class sales... What? They didn't say class sales, they said costumes. But they say there's no short-term plans to bring back class sales, but they will put them on the list. Will there be a U10 Shores of the Everdark? Not this time. Good, because Everdark U8 and U9, I guess I should say, U9's Everdark is actually useless. I think that U9's Everdark, or if they added a U10 Everdark, it should spawn Stellar Gems that guarantee having... all 3 stats, which is kind of weird, because does that mean that we can't get the new gem type as a class gem ability? Right? Unless they just throw it into the current Everdark rotation, I guess. But maybe not. I don't know. Will class gem keys currently obtained be able to unlock a new type of gem and be used in the U10 Everdark if there is one? There is no U10 Everdark and no answer on how class gem keys are going to interact with the new gems yet, as well as the new gem passives that will come out in the future. So they say new gem passives coming out with the future. I don't know if that means that the new gem type is going to have its own set of different passive abilities, which I would assume that it is, because it would be kind of dumb to get a pyro disc on a new type of gem even though you already have a pyro disc, you know, like it would make it that much more specific to get a certain gem that not only has all 3 stat values to it and is stellar in the first place, but also doesn't have any conflicting powers. I don't know, though. It might be able to have conflicting powers, but they say that there's going to be new passives in the future, so I'm guessing not with the U10 update. It's interesting that they say they don't want to tell us how class gem keys are going to affect U10, though. Maybe they're going to end up having them be useful in U10 outside of the Everdark. That would be interesting, because I've got hundreds of them. Is all the economy cleanup work finished? No. They say that the cleanup is almost complete and the restrictions will be lifted next week on the flux tanks. I can confirm that with 100% certainty. The PC economy is finished. Like, it's going to take like months before it's back to normal. Everything is super duper expensive because all of the players that ended up duping flux or taking advantage of the system and just getting flux for free still have like hundreds and hundreds of items that they ended up buying with the flux to end up getting their mastery up. They didn't get rolled back or anything like that. Not to mention the in-game economy is broken because everything that actually costs flux is still selling for millions over the actual asking price. It's going to take a while before it gets back down to normal. It will get back down to normal, but it is not near clean at all. Like, seriously. When will the Hardy Party Pack 2 be released? November. Why November? Give it to us now, dude. That's so disheartening. I want to see all the items in it. Man, we got a lot more questions here, folks. I hope you strapped yourselves in and got some snacks. Do you plan to add moderators to the global chat? Some of the chats can be a bit spicy. No plans. I'll give you guys a tip. This is what I did within the first week of playing Trove. You can go into your miscellaneous settings right here. Or social settings, I mean. And see this checkbox right here? Join global chat. Just global chat. Just uncheck it. I've been out of the global chat since like a week playing this game. It's so bad. It's so toxic. Will you make portals to the next floor in Shadow Tower generate after completing the Cursed Skull? This will prevent players from skipping floors. I don't know. Who cares is what I say. But they say good feedback will evaluate it and figure it out in the future. Will the new empowered gems with a new color drop from old empowered gem boxes? They will not drop from old boxes. This is interesting because, again, when people ended up telling me about this, they implied to me that empowered gem boxes would be absolutely useless. However, this does not mean that empowered gem boxes are going to be useless. Now I'm actually really frustrated that I ended up making this video before I made my empowered gem box unboxing video, because it means what they're essentially saying is that when the new gems are added to the game, then any empowered gem boxes will end up from that point on that you end up getting new, affecting the current, new gems that are going to be added to the game. Which means that I essentially just ended up wasting 133 of my Radiant Pancakes to get empowered gem boxes for the video I put out yesterday, rather than wait, I'm a guinea pig, so that I could end up getting the boxes after U10 was added. That's frustrating. I feel like a chump. But at least you guys and gals all know now, save your Radiant Pancakes. Empowered gem boxes, if you can buy them, don't get them yet. You don't even save your empowered gem boxes. You wait to get your empowered gem boxes for when U10 ends up getting added. So keep that in mind. Can players get a chance to spawn up to 3 to 5 Shadow Tower bosses by making them 5% to 10% stronger each time? Right now we're focused on U10, but when we go back to the Shadow Tower again, we'll look into it. Okay. Will you do any bug fixes or improvements? Yes. We just did the improvements update, which is one of the buggiest updates they've ever added to Trove, by the way, guys. Stop acting like it's good. And we will continue to do fixes like this in the future. Are there going to be any more Vanguard costumes planned? Yes, more will be coming. One of them is supposed to be coming out with U10 at least. Hopefully it means more are going to be coming out if they end up delaying U10 to, you know, later in the year. But we do already know, unfortunately, what the new Vanguard costume is, because it's been in the game code since the class's conception. And it is going to end up being kind of a darker version of this resistor costume that's going to actually be purple rather than orange. We have actually seen what it looks like in the game's code. And unfortunately, they're trying to act like that's something new, but it should have just been into the game a long time ago. But at least we'll have an everdark themed costume for the Vanguard, right? Can we have a method added to farm gem booster boxes outside of spending qubits? No plans right now. That would actually be a good idea. Any plans to change Magic Find? Is there something specific? What part are you wanting changed? Would love to hear feedback for this. Oh, I don't know. How about the fact that it's pretty much useless? Like, make it so that Magic Find, like, affect boxes or something like that. Like, it just, I don't know, overhaul it. It's bad. It's not a good system right now. It's kind of useless because you just get more and more dragons, which just gives you more and more chance of getting stellar drops, which I know for starting players is valuable, but once you get to that mid to end tier point, it's just, Magic Find just goes out the window. You don't even need it anymore, especially if the new tier of gear isn't dropped, right? Yeah. Does Uber World level matter for the drop rate of dragon fragments? No, it doesn't. But they say that for the open world dragon fragments, like the Blackbeard, Chocolate Dragon, and the ones that actually spawn as a world boss, yes, it does actually affect their drop rates. You end up getting more out of U9 killing a Chocolate Dragon than you would in the earlier Uber portals. Yes, but any of the ones that you end up getting the fragments for, like just out of like mining ore or flowers or just enemies killed and stuff like that, no, it doesn't matter. The auto open and delete buttons for boxes are easy to mix up on consoles. Can this be changed? Yes, we'll look into it. My friend wants to know if you'll be able to make a dubstep dragon that is a musical version of Alburn with speakers for wings. Why did they answer this? They just say that your friend has fine taste, which I guess means eventually they will. Weird. Will there be new or will the Shadow Tower bosses be buffed once U10 is released? This is something that's been on all our minds, because as U10 gets released and we get more stronger, it means that Shadow Towers become that much weaker, which we had initially thought, like what I was thinking is right now the difficulty of Daughter of the Moon is U10 difficulty, or U9 difficulty, right? If they had U10, potentially they could just end up cycling that over to Daughter of the Moon so that it was just going to end up being whatever the U10 enemies are going to be. But they go on to say that we will revisit Shadow Towers in a future update. The reason for not will be clarified after U10. The reason why they're not going to change it with U10, I guess is what they're trying to say, which we already kind of know. They've hinted that they're going to end up having new Rampage bosses or a new type of Shadow Tower or something similar to a Shadow Tower that's going to be Geode related specifically, because they're going to be adding new bosses and titans to the game. Will you be making Shadow Tower mounts from bosses drop more commonly? No plans for that. When we revisit Shadow Towers, we can look into it. Will you be adding a new difficulty to Shadow Towers? Not right now. There's no reason to. When will Starfire Dragon fragments, oh my gosh, drop from Ultra Towers again? Can we have a small amount of fragments as compensation for the fragments being coded out? Okay, yeah, there is, as they go to say, there's a miscommunication here, which, yes, there is. There's some miscommunication here. The shores of the Everdark mobs in the Shadow Towers don't drop the fragments, which we've talked about in our Starfire Dragon video. I'm very happy that we were able to actually get to the devs and tell them this through that video. It did exactly what I hoped that it would, where they're going to end up changing the Everdark enemies in Shadow Tower so that they can actually drop dragon fragments and gear and everything like that, because previously they just outright could not drop Starfire fragments. They say that they mentioned it last week, and they were also going to make it so that the enemies can end up dropping them in the future. Can we get a fix for Do Not Disturb not working properly? Yes, we'll look into it. You know what else I would like to see? I want it so that you can turn off invites, but people can still join you. I've always wanted that. I think that would be great. Especially, I think that the reason they're talking about Do Not Disturb not working is because if you invite someone and then they get on their screen, then they go to Do Not Disturb, you can continue to invite that same person because you've already invited them once. It's weird how it works like that, but more recently in the dev streams, the devs have actually seen my frustration where people are spam inviting them to like Shadow Towers and friending them and stuff like that. So hopefully it means they're gonna get off their butts and actually do something about it, because it is a problem, man. Like, it seriously is. Do subscribers have an increased chance to win giveaways? I guess subscribers on their Twitch, which they say, nope, they're around, but that's it. And last but not least, will the PTS be open today? No. That was the last question, which is hilarious. So either way, longer video, but it's always good going through these, and I really do like when the devs actually level with us and talk about some of these things. It's a little bit frustrating that they still try to act like these things are going to end up being more exciting than they are, and I don't mean to take anything away from them trying to get us hyped about stuff, but it's like with their track record, people are generally getting less and less interested in what they're talking about and what they have to say, more specifically when they pull stuff like this, where we see the developers talking about how the update for U10 is going to be coming on in the fall, and then there's going to be one last update at the end of the year. Now U10 is just being pushed back, and there's only one last update for this entire year that's going to end up being a big overhaul one anyways. But we got to hear that empowered gem boxes that you currently have will not be affected by the new gem drop. So save your lunar souls, save your radiant pancakes until after the U10 update, if you can. I'm going to. And then on top of that, we know that shadow boxes that we end up keeping right now aren't going to end up affecting it. Maybe they will in the future, but generally it just seems like they're not going to affect it, period. So I can just open all those and get a bunch of extra gem dust, I guess, but there's no reason for me to open my shadow gem boxes. And more importantly, we got to hear a little bit about the new gear and how hopefully we can end up seeing a new form of combat being added to the game, which we desperately need, considering that the Tomb Raiser is going to be updated in 2019 and he's the next class on the list, rather than like the Boomeranger or a more popular class like the Shadow Hunter or even the Candy Barb. Candy Barb could use a rework, which I'm not saying that you Tomb Raiser mains aren't happy about this. I do think that Tomb Raiser is a little bit more important than the Ice Sage, honestly. But I wouldn't say that it's a class that needs a complete overhaul, especially because, as we've seen with their track record, once again, overhauls essentially end up turning classes into DPS. Tomb Raiser and Revenant, anyways, Revenant after his rework actually made him a really, really good tank, and the Tomb Raiser is the only other tank in the game that is quite literally designed to be a tank. So if they end up overhauling it and turning it into a damage class, unfortunately, we're going to end up dealing with the similar issue that we already had before any of the classes end up getting overhauled, in that all of the classes will do damage, but certain classes will just do damage more effectively, because the way that Trove works and what Trove is boiled down to is your attack animation. The big reason why the Vanguard is one of the fastest farmers in the game, even, being very, very comparable to the Neon Ninja. Neon Ninja has a lot more movement when you're backflipping and, going through dungeons and stuff like that way, but Vanguard is better at killing because his attack animation is just boom, 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 boss is dead. Whereas the Neon Ninja, 1, 2, 3, shuriken, backflip, shoot. So they're kind of on par with that, and that's kind of the whole point I'm trying to get at, where I want the Shadow Hunter rework, because the Shadow Hunter is another one of those characters where boss dead, Anyways, though, I could just keep going on and on about all this stuff. It is still very exciting, though. Man alive, it's exciting that they finally ended up talking about this. Unfortunately, though, we're not going to have another one of these videos for, it looks like, another 2 weeks. So when they end up coming back after their 2-week holiday, hopefully it means we're going to end up actually seeing some U10 content, or at least getting more of our questions answered rather than them just hinting at it. And in October, at the least, they better show us it. And then have the PTS server, the test server, end up going online a little bit after that, if not just in October, right? So that we could try it out. I would expect it to come out after, though. Either way, still cool stuff. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, sub, and hit that notification bell. And if you want to support me, you can always hit that join button down below. It's going to be a monthly sub fee. Really helps me out. You'll end up getting custom emojis when I'm doing live streams on YouTube, and then you'll end up getting a new icon next to your username when you leave comments and stuff. But if you want to do other things, you can always buy some of my merch. And then there's also going to be options for those of you that are free-to-play supporters. See what I did there? Where you can actually check down below for Gawkbox as well as Solidarity app. Those are going to be links that you go through your phone, link it with your YouTube account, It's all good. It's not a virus. And then they'll tell you, play this phone game for 2 minutes, or just install this game and get to a certain point in it. And then they quite literally just give you free money that you can then donate. It's a really, really good system. I love it because it gives you guys free options where you can end up helping me out and supporting my way of living for absolutely free. So awesome. Thanks for watching, though. Regardless, sayonara and stay epic, everybody.